Hey everyone, welcome to Time to Thrive. This is your host, Bethany Meadows. It's been said the better you are at something, the easier it looks to others. However, the road to success is usually not an easy or perfect journey. Our guest today studies the habits of the most successful people in order to learn about their best practices. I'm excited to have her here with us today to hear what she has learned from studying everyone from astronauts to athletes, so that we might optimize our own success. Dr. Ruth Gotian is a Chief Learning Officer and Assistant Professor of Education in Anesthesiology, former Assistant Dean of Mentoring, and Executive Director of the Mentoring Academy at Wile, Cornell Medicine. In 2021, she was one of 30 people worldwide to be named to the Thinkers50 Radar List, dubbed the Oscars of management thinking, and is a semi-finalist for the Forbes 50 over 50 list. Recently, she won the Thinkers50 Distinguished Achievement Radar Award, ranking her the #1 emerging management thinker in the world. Along with co-authoring other books and numerous journals, she is also the author of The Success Factor, Developing the Mindset and Skill Set for Peak Performance. Welcome to the show, Ruth.
Hey, thank you. Great
I
to be
almost
here.
didn't make that through that, and it's very obvious who the smartest person on the show is today.
I thought you were stumped because of the Forbes 50 over 50, and you said there's no way she could be over 50.
Well,
We're going to go with that reason.
that I will give you that. And also, I was awarded the top 50 over 50 in Alabama last year. So I have the same.
Nice. Nice. We're sisters.
It gives it away. All right. As always, we're going to have you pick a number between 1 and 5, and we're going to give you our super random question.
I like peak performance, so let's go with 5 out of 5.
5. What was the best present you ever received?
Oh, there's 2. I went back to school later in life. I was 43 when I went back to school to get my doctorate. And, at this point, you're established, you have a family, you have a house. There's nothing you really need. But somebody gave me a tumbler for my coffee that says, Miss, Ms., Mrs. Doctor, and the doctor is checked off. And I still use it.
That is the best.
That one was great. And also somebody gave me for a holiday the best fleece blanket. The one that you when you're watching television, it's one of those throw blankets. I feel like I'm wrapping myself up in a cloud.
The cozy snuggle blanket.
Good.
Yes. See, now I'm big on coffee mugs. And my sister-in-law gave me this one for Christmas. But I'm also big on something else too. So she read this one perfectly. Those on the podcast can't see, but it's coffee now, and the other side is wine later. So we got it all.
I've got coffee as a vitamin.
I think it is, and I've had about 5 cups today, so my hair is a little crunchy, and I'm ready. Success. We're going to talk about success today, and success is one of those subjective terms, because what is success for one person may not be success for someone else. And in your book, you describe it as a moving target. How can we define a successful person?
So I think the definition is different for every person. That was one of the first parts of the research that I needed to do, was to define it, because the way you define it is not going to be the way I define it. And what the research has shown is that the definition varies based on whom you ask, of course, but it also varies based on gender and rank. So that's a whole separate discussion. The way I define it, and this is based on the research that I have done, is that 3 things need to happen. You have to have had to be an extreme high achiever, which is who I study. You had to have done something that creates a paradigm shift in the way we do things, think about things, process things. You've achieved something that achievement causes us to do things differently. The second thing is, as you are climbing through the ranks, you are pulling other people up with you. because you understand that a light on them does not detract from the light on you.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is when you have reached the apex of your career, you are paying it forward by mentoring the next generation, either a one-to-one or one-to-many model. So you notice I never talked about money. I never talked about influence. I never talked about how many social media followers you have. It's a very different definition. And that's the definition I use to talk to Nobel Prize winners and astronauts and NBA champions and cool people like that.
That's awesome. It would be amazing to have those kind of interviews. Small business owners is primarily who our audience is here, and high performing real estate agents we include in that group as well. And they are some of the most passionate people in the world about what they do. It really drives them. When a normal sane person would have given up, a business owner just keeps going because they are so passionate about what they do. And you identified passion as being one of those motivators of high achievers. Can you speak more to the importance of understanding the why and the passion of what you do?
Yeah, that intrinsic motivation is so critical. If you start doing things for the diplomas, awards, rewards, promotions, bonuses, certificates, those are external validators. That's when other people are judging you. And that's hard to maintain and sustain when you're always trying to please someone else.
Yeah.
But when you're doing it for yourself, this is the reason you wake up in the morning. This is the reason you can't quiet your mind at night. This is what you would do for free if you could. This is like play for you, right? You love it that much. When that happens, no matter the challenge before you, you know you will succeed. It's not a question. And that drives the perseverance, the resilience, the grit, and everything else.
Sometimes passion's not enough, right? Sometimes we need to maintain that motivation in spite of obstacles and challenges. So how can we do that when passion kind of wanes because things have gotten really hard? What do we do then?
Well, I will say that you also have to have the talent, right? You can like something, but not be good at it. You're not going to be exceptional at it. So you need to have the talent and the intrinsic motivation. One of the things we know is that motivation changes over time, right? What we loved when we were 18, 20 years old, picking out our college major, is not what we love when we're 40 and 50 and have other pressures in our lives. And it shouldn't be. And that's one of the things the pandemic taught us, is that when we have transitions in our lives, our focus changes, our passions change. So every time you have a transition in your life, a new job, a new partner, a new child, a move, you need to start thinking about your passions and if they are the same or if they've adjusted. And one of the things I do when I coach people is I take them through what I call a passion audit. And a passion audit differentiates between what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing, what you would do for free if you could. And there's all sorts of prompts that I ask them in order to be able to pull this information out of them. And if any of your listeners want to do their own passion audit, I put it on my website. They can download it, ruthgotian.com/passion audit.
Okay. Well, I'll put that link down in the comments for the podcast. So passion audit, right?
Yeah.
When you were talking, the thing that popped in my mind and about how things had changed in my life is I was a corporate ladder climber in the first part of my career. I was hungry. I was always for that next promotion. I had VP to be custom license plate. I had one child because that was all I could handle. And then my life changed drastically when I adopted a sibling group of 4 children. So I went from 1 to 5 pretty much overnight.
Wow.
And they became my passion. They became the center of my universe, so to speak. And work became more of I want to do things that give me joy, but that wasn't as important as having the time to be a mom. When I started my business, I was a single mom with 5 kids and homeschooling. And
homeschooling. Wow.
and they had some, some special learning challenges, and I wanted to continue to be able to, give them that kind of attention and one-on-one. But it also meant that I had to work 18 to 20 hours a day between homeschooling and running a business. And it was hard. It was a hard season. So in looking back over my version of success for me, I thought I was successful in the corporate world because I was climbing that ladder at this rapid speed, and that felt like success. And then my priorities changed. And then I raised these kids as a single mom and got them to, my youngest will be 30 this year. How's that for aging you?
Wow.
And I have 5 grandbabies. And to me, watch them be successful and with their relationships and their careers, to me, that's success. And now my husband and I I've got remarried, and my husband and I are starting on this new path of, looking towards retirement and the things that we want to do and travel and things like that. And that feels like success. So it really is an interesting thing how you look back over the course of your life. And if there's somebody listening who's maybe in their 20s or their 30s, this is kind of like that cautionary tale of make sure you're pursuing the things that you are passionate about. Don't allow yourself to be kind of stuck in Mediocreville, or, waste your whole life on playing a video game. Or there's so much out there to do and to experience.
Remember I said that it changes when you have a transition in your life? Well, your transition was adopting those 4 kids.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the things that were important to you before were just not as important. And there were new things that were important in your life, new things that you were passionate about. Your definition of success has changed. And that's okay that it changes. In fact, one of the questions I always ask the Olympians when I finish interviewing them is if they can show me their medals. This is at the end. Only 2 of them had it on display. All the rest, it was in the nightstand drawer, it was in the safe, it was in a box under the bed. Apollo Ono, the most decorated Winter Olympian, had it in a brown paper bag in the sock drawer. Now, I thought that was really odd. If I won the Olympic medal, I'd wear it vacuuming into the supermarket. But they all said to me, it was never about the medal. They said, that's a chapter in my life, not the entire story. And as soon as their Olympic career was over, they were on to their next goal, their new passion. And that's why they didn't crash and burn when they got their gold medals. We see so often that many athletes get the Olympic medal when they're teenagers, and that was the be all and end all, was that gold medal. Remember that extrinsic motivation.
Right.
And that's why they spiraled out of control afterwards, because they didn't have the next goal. It was just about something external instead of something internal. Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, the one who did the backflips, when his skating career was over, he went on to broadcasting, and now he raises money for the research and treatment of cancer. He's a cancer survivor multiple times, and that's important to him now. So he now raises funds for that, and he is all in. And when you talk to him about it, his whole face lights up with that same energy he had on the ice. That's his energy for now, for raising money and doing programs for cancer patients.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of his. Just he had the greatest he has the greatest personality and charisma, and he just inspires you by the way he is. You have a section,
and he's like that in real life too. That's not just for show.
Yeah, it feels very genuine, which is why it's, why you're attracted to it. There's a section in your book about having the humility to recognize your limits, and then having the boldness to push past them. And that is such a powerful statement, because imposter syndrome, fear of failure, as business owners, we deal with a lot of these things because our world is always changing and the buck stops with us. So we have to figure it out. Can you elaborate more on the power of humility?
Look, you don't know what you don't know. And that's why you need to surround yourself with people who can take those blinders off of you and give you perspective and understand that the feedback they're giving you is to make you better. It's not a critique, but you have to be open to it. You have to say, I don't know what I don't know. And all of these people realize that they are really standing on the shoulders of giants. And those giants include the people who are around them. And if I've spoken to well over 100 of these people. They are the nicest people on earth, and they don't think they're God's gift to the world. In fact, when I had the book launch party for the Success Factor for my book, it was on Zoom, right? And one of the astronauts texted me, and this was for the people who were in the book, because I knew them, but they didn't know each other. So one of the astronauts texted me and he said, oh, will Dr. Fauci be there? Because Dr. Fauci's in the book. I said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think he's a little busy right now. Omicron just hit. I'm not counting on it. I said, but this Nobel Prize winner will be there. So the astronaut said, oh, Nobel Prize winner. Now that's a high achiever. And I'm thinking, you are an astronaut. You went in a tin can into space. I think you count as a high achiever. So about a month later, I told this story to the Nobel Prize winner. And he said, well, that's really interesting. I know a lot of Nobel Prize winners. We have these conferences, we have these events. It's no big deal, right? But I've never met an astronaut, and I think they're amazing. Right? So everything is relative. And the people you surround yourself with becomes your average. So if everyone around you is a Nobel Prize winner, that's your average. And I'm on a mission to make average the floor, not the ceiling.
Wow. There's a lot in what you just said there. One of the qualities of successful people is that they never stop learning. And this is something we talk about in Time to Thrive, is that learning needs to become a lifestyle. And one thing you recommend is mapping a learning path. Yeah. Can you share what that looks like?
Yeah. In fact, the former director of the National Park Service, John Jarvis, he started out as one of those people in uniform in front of the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. He was a seasonal employee for the bicentennial of the United States. And he worked his way up through the ranks. And he wanted to be the director of the National Park Service, but he realized that there were skills he needed to learn. He needed to learn how to manage time, budgets, people, etc. There's no such program to teach you all of this. So he decided wherever he was at the moment, he would take classes in those skills that he felt was a gap in his experiences. And then when the federal government created a program for federal employees, leadership program, he said, oh, this is great. I can learn from other people how to do things, right? Because maybe a problem I'm having in the National Park Service was solved in the Department of Commerce or whatever it is. So you can learn from each other as well. So I think mapping out the skills that you want to attain and figuring out how you're going to do it. Now, I started off by saying I went back to school at the age of 43 to get my doctorate. That's not normal. Most people don't do that. You certainly don't need to do that. You don't need a degree for everything that you want to get, but you do need to keep your mind open to new knowledge. So you can read books, you can read articles, you can watch TED Talks, you can listen to podcasts. Hopefully people are learning something new here today. There's so many ways that you can learn something new as long as you keep your mind open to it. There's not one way that's the perfect way, but there's a way that will work best for you. I'm a voracious reader. I read about 70 books a year, but I read them in 3 formats: print, Kindle, and Audible. So I can listen to books during my commute. I could write in books that I take notes on, and Kindle is for the fiction. Right. So you find what works best for you.
Wow. We can have all the right mindset and the right strategies, but if we don't have the right work ethic, it's not really good. That's the other side of the equation, right?
Yeah.
when I was 10 years old, my dad decided that I needed a job, and he signed me up to be the newspaper girl for 300 addresses.
Whoa.
And I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go out. And of course, I was raised in Canada, so sometimes it was like blizzarding outside, and I would go out and get my newspapers. And when I first started, he would go out there with me and make sure that I, knew what I was doing and could get it done. And if they shorted me the newspaper, I would trudge all the way down to the corner store and buy one with my own money to make sure my customer didn't go without.
Wow.
And he taught me, I tie my work ethic back to that experience, to be that young with that level of responsibility, managing money, putting money in the bank, working hard early hours before I would go to school, developing relationships with customers. That really gave me a gift that I carried with me my whole life, that I've, that has served me really well. You also use words like unyielding and perseverance.
Yeah.
And it takes both, doesn't it?
It really does. And I think it ties into that intrinsic motivation. When you are so passionate about something, no matter the barrier, the boulder, the hurdle that gets thrown your way, you're not going to let it stop you, because you're on a bigger mission, right? So think of all the Olympians who have trained their whole life for the Olympics, and then a pandemic hit and it had to be postponed and they couldn't get to the gym. I don't know of any of them who quit. They found other ways to work out for an extra year. And I shared this story in the book of Dr. Peggy Whitson, who's a biochemist. And she worked at NASA for years. And she had always wanted to become an astronaut. And she applied and was rejected, and applied again and was rejected, and applied again and was rejected. And this went on for 10 years. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know that I'd apply for the same job for 10 years. I'd likely move on. But she kept at it because she said, I knew I was going to be an astronaut, and I'm going to take all the information I have from working at NASA in order to improve my application. And it's a good thing she didn't give up, because, she became an astronaut. And she spent more days in space than any American astronaut of any gender. She became the first female commander of the International Space Station. And ultimately, she went on to become NASA's chief astronaut. So you see, all of these people, when they're faced with a challenge, they never question if they will beat that challenge. They're always going to beat it. For them, the question is not if, the question is how. And they ask themselves, what is the strategy I haven't thought of yet? And when you switch the challenge from if to how, you are now controlling what you can control. And that puts you in the driver's seat. And now anything is possible.
A number of years ago, I read a book called The Power of Full Engagement. And this was like one of those like mind-blowing concepts to me, because I was like, miss time management, right? Because I had everybody time blocked for all the homeschool things and all the work things. And I literally had a color-coded schedule, all the things. I was all about managing time. And then I read that book and I was like, it all went, yours was only the second book that I've ever seen talk about that. And I don't think that it's talked about enough, because it really is a game changer when you understand that time is finite and your energy is not. And that's right. You can manage your energy. So you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I really appreciated that. Finally, it's about somebody else talking about it.
Yes. So this is why I don't like when people say, oh, these are the habits of high achievers. Wake up at 5 a.m. and read for 8 hours a day and make your bed before you do anything else, because we cannot copy and paste other people's habits. What works for you in Alabama with 5 children is not going to work for me in New York with an hour-and-a-half commute each way. It's different lives, different time constraints, different environments. But what we can learn is we can emulate mindsets. So it's not about waking up at 5 a.m. It's figuring out your peak performance hours and leveraging that time. So for example, if you're a night owl and you don't go to bed till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there's no way you're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and expecting to be effective. It's not going to work, right? But if you are a morning person, I happen to be that morning person that wakes up at 5 a.m. Those are my peak performance hours, which means that's when I am most focused. That is when I can get into a state of flow. You cannot waste that time doing the busy work, doing the work that doesn't require the deep thinking. So your peak performance hours are you should focus on the tasks that require the deepest level of focus and thinking. And then I talk about in the book in the success factor, how to then do it. You can't just sit for 3 hours without getting up, because then the rest of your day is ruined. Your mind is mush. Instead, I talk about working in sprints. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but working in sprints and taking 5-minute breaks in between these sprints will actually make you more productive. So you focus your peak performance hours on the work that requires deep thinking and deep work. And then during the hours you're more sluggish, which for me is in the afternoon, that's when you do your Zoom meetings. That's when you respond to emails. That's when you check your social media. These are more passive tasks that don't require the same level as focus. And people don't know, but that's why we're recording this at the end of the day.
Yes.
Because it doesn't require the same level of focus as if I'm writing an article or editing something or writing a book.
That's right. Yeah.
That was planned.
The creative flow happened when I was like doing the research and figuring out, the best way to approach the interview. That was when I did that in the mornings.
Yeah. And you definitely did your research. I've done over 150 podcast interviews to promote the book. Your questions are different than I've ever been asked in 150 podcasts. You have definitely done your research.
Thank you. Well, and I feel like you're spending your time to come and share with the audience. I want to get the best for them from you. And I can't do that if I don't know what the best is that you have.
I hope I'm giving the best.
You interviewed some amazing people for your book.
Did.
Amazing. I want an experience that had to have been, who was your favorite person that you interviewed? I would say favorite person. Who was your favorite interview? And what were some of the takeaways you learned from them?
Well, I can tell you my favorite interviews. Apollo Ono shocked me. He was the most decorated Winter Olympian. He won the Mirror Bowl trophy on Dancing with the Stars. I felt like I was talking to a colleague. He was so well read on adult learning and positive psychology and flow. I really and truly felt like I was talking to a colleague. I was not expecting that at all. I also was not expecting that so many of the Nobel Prize winners and NBA champions and astronauts would become such good friends, like really, really good friends. Because one of the things that I have realized from doing this for so long and speaking to so many people is that, yeah, they've achieved incredible things. They also have imposter syndrome, like the rest of us mere mortals. They're regular people who put their pants on one leg at a time. And I'm not really asking for anything from them, right? And people like to work with those who they know, like, and trust. And thankfully, I've been able to establish that with them. And I feel that the more we talk to people, the more we see how aligned we are and how connected we are and how much we overlap in certain things. And sometimes we just need to have those conversations to figure out where it is that we overlap. And I'm never going to be a Nobel Prize winner. I have no interest in being an astronaut. I'm not athletic enough to be an Olympian, but yet some of them have become such good friends because we found that overlap.
That is probably one of the most beautiful statements I've heard in a long time, because we live in a world now where division is the norm.
Yeah.
We're all on a side. We're all hating the other side because they think different than us. And really, at the end of the day, we're all just humans. And we all have the same imposter syndrome, fear of failure, goals, passions, things that we want to accomplish. And that should really be our focus instead of being divided by politics or social issues or whatever it is. That was just a really beautiful statement that brings that all together. And the fact that you brought all those amazing people together and they formed those relationships, that's an amazing thing too.
Yeah.
If you had to choose one or two things that you really wanted the audience to take away from our interview today and implement in their business, what would be the most important things that you want to make sure that they hear and understand?
Well, I think there are 4 elements of success, and you have to do all 4 of them. But it starts with that intrinsic motivation. So I'm really keen on people following those 4 elements of success. And I created a blueprint for how to tap into it with what I call a buffet of options. Because again, what works for you is not going to work for me. So people can pick and choose how to find their passions, how to implement their passions, how to focus during their peak performance hours. I want everyone to be able to do that because, as I said, I want average to be the floor, not the ceiling. And I really, really, truly believe nobody wakes up in the morning aiming to be average. And we need a roadmap to figure out how to get there. And I'm really hoping the success factor can be that roadmap for anybody who's interested in achieving greater success.
Well, this is a good lead-in for you to share where people can find your resources and more information about you and potentially connect with you.
Sure. So my name again is Ruth Gotian, Gotian. All the social media is just my name. I will share something that's become a very popular resource. I find that people don't always know how to initiate conversations with strangers. That has become very hard for many people. And that's something that I excel at. I mean, I have to for the work that I do.
Right.
So I've put 13 of my favorite conversation starters on my website under the resources. If you go to ruthgotian.com/conversation, you will see it there. And again, please do reach out. There's a TEDx talk. The book is called The Success Factor. Wherever you love getting books, it's available in all formats. And I'm eager to hear from people what their favorite story is.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been amazing.